Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
I'm Pauline Mosley. Welcome.
And we have a really inspirational talk today. We're going to be interviewing Jennifer Goldman and Caryn Hirshleifer, and they're the authors of a new book, In the Face of Catastrophe. And this interview is definitely probably the most inspiring interview that we've had so far. And it's really a miracle what you've been through. You overcame some odds, a lot of odds, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the experiences you had.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jen. Before this happened, I was a motivational speaker. I had my own business. I was working on content, and I was really successful. And then this happened, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything for myself.
And you were only 31?
No, not even 31. It was 30 days before my 31st birthday. This happened in August, on August 18th of 2021. And it was really devastating.
And it was a massive
Brain bleed.
brain bleed.
Yeah. In my left frontal lobe, which is where you communicate and governs communication and language and all of this stuff that was really pivotal to my speaking. And that was my business before. And it was really scary.
And you were in a coma?
I was in a coma for 10 days.
For 10 days, and you lost your speaking abilities.
I lost everything.
You lost everything. That's really incredible because you would never know it from seeing you now.
Thank you.
How long have you been in recovery?
Ever since. This was 3 years ago.
And how long did it take you to get your speaking abilities back?
I'm not sure, Mom.
It was a progression of, it started off where Jen had trouble accessing words. A lot of her short-term or her working memory was gone. A lot of her, if you think about the bleed, it's almost like a flood that comes in and washes away
Your pathways.
And thankfully, there is what's called neuroplasticity, where the brain is able to
Rewire.
And especially when you're young, the rewiring is much more possible and expansive. So initially, and it's a sort of a funny story, Jen has, from the beginning, she was determined, I want to get my speech back, I want to be able to speak. And she was very uncomfortable speaking because there were gaps, because she couldn't recall things. So she'd be telling a story and
I would just forget
where she was, what the point was. Her speaking was really superficial. Her content was superficial, whereas in the past she was very deep and was able to access emotions and really was a powerful, thoughtful writer and speaker. And so she needed to basically get that depth back, which
I'm still working on it.
She's still working on it, right?
Yeah.
I think that what's so interesting is that you wrote a book, In the Face of Catastrophe, and this book probably should be a must-read book for anyone who is experiencing something else, because did you lose hope at any point after your daughter had this incident, and did you think that it would be almost impossible for her to be like she is today?
I never lost hope. I guess for me, my strategy was be present, because at least for the first 6 months, and starting from when she was in the hospital, there were so many perils that lie ahead. Would she survive? She wasn't supposed to live. The neurosurgeon initially told us that if she had what he thought she had, which were multiple bleeds in her brain, he could not save her. And then he basically realized after doing an angiography that he didn't think she had that. but there was so much blood in her brain. And, the brain of somebody like me is not the same type of brain that Jen has. When you're younger, your brain is really full, and it completely takes up your skull. And my brain, as you get older, your brain starts to shrink a bit, and so there's more room for blood or fluid or liquid to exist in your brain without damaging the brain itself. With Jen, the skull was so tight on the brain that any blood in there was, as the blood was there, it was literally damaging her remaining brain.
Now, what's amazing about what you did is you kept a daily diary.
Yes.
And what gave you the idea of having a diary?
Well, I always like to write, although I've never done it as a, to make money or survive, because I'd be penniless and whatever, but there was so much going on that I didn't.
For you to process what was going on.
Right, I didn't know how to. From hearing that Jen had a stroke where the day before she was hiking, to hearing that she was going to die, then hearing she was okay, but that if she continued to bleed or rebleed, she would die, to then trying to get the blood out of her brain, which took days, and knowing that as the blood remained in her brain, it was continuing to do damage. There were so many emotions, and there was no time to process them. No time to really even think about, is this really happening? How is this happening? Why is this happening? What does her future look like if she survives? Will she be able to walk and talk? Where's the Jen? The brain that, this beautiful brain that is the Jen brain.
And you're...
May I ask a question? Because this is such an incredible story. Because for you, in the book, you share so many lens sets of how this catastrophe impacted your family. You as an accomplished attorney, and your husband and father, who's a physician. How do you navigate through something when you are so educated and I think it's different for lay people when we don't know, we don't know the unknown, but when you're educated and I think it's such a different trajectory of healing, because as you so articulately expressed. Could you talk about the lens set from your father?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. My dad knew everything that was happening, and it was really hard for him because he had to balance being a dad and also being a doctor.
And then there was a third thing, being a dad, being a doctor, and then as a doctor, we looked to him to tell us what was up.
Yeah.
And there were certain things that he didn't want to tell us because we weren't there yet, certain potentially horrific things. And so we each had different challenges in terms of trying to navigate this. So, David, there was a part of me that felt sad for him, because what does he know that he's not telling me? And he has to hold that by himself, because he's not telling me. And, so there's that. There was me, the mom, there was Jen and Amanda, and we each had our own experience. And that's why the book is told in different voices, because what is truth? And then I also put in the hospital records, which is another voice. And, so it was like, whose truth is the truth? Is anyone's truth the truth? And it was really, really complicated. But going back to your question, Paul, for me, the way I managed it was to stay present, okay? Meaning doctors were saying all sorts of things. First of all, when Jen got into the ICU, I mean, she was not your average, typical ICU patient. Okay, most people in neurosurgical ICU, a NICU, are older, are much
older,
sicker,
right,
are much
right.
frailer. And so here they have this 30-year-old woman who comes in, and the people in the hospital, in the NICU, connect with her in a very different way. It's my sister. It's my mother. I mean, I'm sorry, my mother. This is my daughter. It's my granddaughter. Oh my God, this is happening to me and my family.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning, there was almost an unstated commitment on the part of the staff.
Deeper sense of care.
Right, we are not letting her go on our watch.
Yeah.
That's great. Are you, your boyfriend was also supportive?
Yes.
And how did he support, how supportive was he?
He was very supportive in his own way.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, we really hadn't known him very well before this happened, and that first day in the hospital was like a week, and at the end of the day when we left, you know, I said, Jen and Misha had taken an apartment nearby, we're living together, and I said, do you want to go to your apartment tonight? You want to be alone? And he said, not really. I said, come over. And he took Jen's room. And there was something about having someone in Jen's room living in the house.
Yeah.
And,
Amazing.
you know, what happened was, you know, David, Misha, me, Amanda, were all legs of a table. You know, we needed these legs to stand. The weight of the table was so heavy, and you know, so it was being together. It was every night coming home. Every night, just the four of us. Some nights, Amanda would say, "I do not want to hear a word
About the hospital?
about blood, about drains, about stroke, about anything."
Yeah.
She said, we're going to eat dinner and we're going to watch like Corky Romano or The Birdcage or, you know, and we did that. We did that because, you know, you knew that later that night you're going to be getting a call from the ICU that another drain had to be put in because there was blood that it still wasn't draining, which happened.
Let me ask you another question that I was just thinking of. Has your attitude about life, changed many times? When I deal with constituents, and you're on the zoning board, people complain about all these minor things.
Exactly.
Now that you survived something that's really bad, do you look at the little problems differently than
I
you
do.
did before?
I do. They don't really matter. Little problems don't matter at all in perspective. They don't really matter. That's the truth. When you go through something like this, you realize that they don't matter.
So if my air conditioning doesn't work today, I shouldn't get too upset.
No. I mean, yes, you should because it's so hot out.
Yeah,
But
you really
put
have
it
to
in
take.
perspective.
Right. And the other question that I have is, you survived a major, problem. How do you say you're grateful about the chances of having sort of a second chance when you've been through something so horrible?
Horrific, yeah.
I woke up from the experience and I felt so grateful. It felt like it was a gift. I don't really know how to explain that. It just was my attitude at the time.
Can I actually read something from the
Yes.
book?
Sure.
Which, there's a couple of things, but this is right on that point.
We'd love for you to do that.
Right. So the book is written from the voices of Mikey, Misha, myself, David, the hospital records, Amanda, and then
Me.
Jen appears in the middle of the book
Yeah.
when she actually had a voice. Okay. But this was February 5th, 2022. This is Jen. You become what you most often think about. What we put our attention on grows. That's why I changed the screensaver on my phone from an image of water to a screenshot of one of my daily affirmations, good things are coming my way. This is the mindset I want to embody. My mother was amazed at how I could be so positive, even after everything that's happened. To me, it's empowering
to put what I want out into the universe where it can be heard. There are other affirmations I also repeat to myself. I am well. I have strength. I am getting better every day. This might not be present for me yet, but speaking as if it is brings it out of my reach. I can see myself in a place of power and strength, and that inspires me to continue to work hard.
Well, I must say, Jen, you are more than a motivational speaker. Your life is an emblem of motivation. I can't even find the adjectives to describe it.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that this book is going to be a bestseller
Thank you.
because your story, your life, your resilience is motivational. Sometimes we think motivational speech and speeches, we move people with words, but your actions and what you've gone through
Thank you.
and coming out is so moving, is so powerful,
Thank
it's
you.
so touching, and it's I don't even have words for it, right, Paul? It's
Yeah.
just amazing.
How do you purchase the book?
Yeah, tell us about the book.
On Amazon,
The book is basically
Everywhere.
everywhere. At bookstores, all bookstores, at Amazon, at
Barnes & Noble.
Barnes & Noble, smaller bookstores. We're doing an event in September at Theodore's,
Yeah.
which is a bookstore
In
in
Oyster
Oyster
Bay.
Bay. So anywhere that you can basically get a book, you can get this book. It's also on Kindle.
Yeah.
I had a suggestion.
Yes.
I sort of thought that it would be great if you would reach out to some of the hospitals and ask the ICU divisions to purchase copies and
That's
leave it in the
great.
waiting rooms because
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
you know
That's
again
a
one
great
of the
idea.
one of the problems that
Awesome.
people have when they're in hospitals, especially in ICU, is
So
people are always stressed out. And
Very
if somebody while they're waiting would read
Such
this
a
book,
message of
it may give them hope and
So
inspiration, and it
Absolutely,
may
Paul.
motivate them to continue. So, in fact, I have a meeting with some hospital administrators, so I think I'm going to suggest that
That's
when
amazing.
I have when I speak, because you know what, it really makes a difference. Sometimes you speak to
absolutely.
doctors and you know and you're all
Absolutely.
stressed out and you're in a hospital waiting room and they'll say, I have a minute,
Yeah.
make it fast or something.
Yes.
So this is something
Yes.
that would
great.
calm people down. I also was going to ask you the value of family in overcoming something like this. Like, do you feel that since you were there and your husband was there
Yeah.
and your boyfriend was
I was
there,
gonna ask
did
that
that
too.
help you overcome
My
this?
family was crucial to my recovery. They were always there for me. My sister especially played such a big role in my recovery because she was my protector. She was my voice when I didn't have a voice.
Right.
She really stood up for me and asked for things that she knew I needed. Like if the pillow was in a certain way,
Right.
she'd yell about that. She'd make a mess at the staff, the nursing staff.
Because when Jen had ultimately had her a craniectomy, a part of her skull, removed so that her brain had room to expand, and so there were very strict rules. She should not have a pillow. She has to have towels rolled up, whatever.
Right, right.
And invariably,
Amanda
invariably,
She was so strict about that.
yeah, Amanda would arrive and she would see, and there was a sign up that said, no this, no that. Amanda would arrive, and if she would see that there was a pillow there, she would go racing to the nurse's station and said, what is this doing here? So, yeah, she was a really great advocate for
So whose idea was it to write the book?
ours.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. I mean, there's so many themes and so many lifelong lessons that emerge from this.
Thank you.
But one theme is love, the
Yeah.
love of everyone and in the family and in the support, as Paul said. And for you as a mother, you're just both of you are such blazing role models. You're just the epitome of selflessness, of taking, as an attorney, I'm sure that impacted your business and practice. Can you talk a little bit about how did you juggle being a caregiver and
Yeah.
your business and the home and
Well,
how did you do this and writing the book? I mean, it's
Well, it was
absolutely
little-
amazing.
Yeah, it was a little tricky because I basically stopped practicing law a number of years back, and I am working in my family business. And it so happened that Jen's stroke happened at my family business. And, we have, I don't know, like 150 employees, and maybe 50 of them were there that morning. And so the stroke was not just
I
personal
see.
to me and my husband and my immediate family. It was personal to the greater community of people that I work with and that Jen has worked with. And so it was really, really hard because when I did return to work, everybody was, I couldn't actually get through walking on the upstairs floor without 20 people. How is she? How is she? How is you? And, there were moments where she was bad. I didn't have anything good to say.
Yeah.
And that was hard because I would like to have something good to say, but it was almost like, I wish I had something good to say. And it got to the point where I'd go to work and I'd go downstairs to my office and I'd stay there. But it was interesting because what we then did was everyone at work was so impacted that in our business we have an employee assistance plan, an EAP, and basically I had them come and we did an intervention for the entire staff. And everybody came, like everyone who was there and not there that day. And I was there with David and Amanda and Misha, and people started talking about how, I wish we could have done more. I wish this, feelings of regret, feelings of fault, and I just said to them, this is amazing, you saved her life. What are you not getting? You saved her life. But yeah, so it was complicated in answer to your question.
And it's tough when you how you're grappling with grief and difficult times in your life. That's something else I found interesting. Another thing that I should just mention is that the book is easy to read. It's only about 200 pages, so it's a quick read. And I think that if somebody's waiting for a family member in a hospital waiting room, they could really, this could really make such a big difference in people's emotions.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks. So I now have my work cut out. Oh, in terms of the therapist, did you have what type of therapy have you been?
I'm still doing it. I'm doing all of it. I do physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy and vision therapy. I'm very jam-packed on my therapies because I do them every day.
And I was, I get a lot of constituent complaints, and people are dealing with always complaining about insurance companies and hospitals and all that. I'm wondering if you've had problems dealing with red tape either from insurance or.
We've actually been really lucky with insurance, and so that's not been an issue for us. And the hospitals, North Shore University Hospital and Glen Cove Hospital, were phenomenal. I mean, we can't say enough about them, and actually some of the doctors are acknowledged in the book. I wonder if I could read one quick thing. I know. So, okay, this is in my voice. We decided to return Jen's leased car to the dealership toward the end of January. She certainly wasn't going to be driving it anytime soon. First, though, I had to clean it out. I was apprehensive. It held so many memories of Jen's pre-stroke life. It was going to be like opening a raw, weeping wound. Even though Jen hadn't been in the car for months, the elegant citrusy scent of neroli hit me as soon as I opened the door. Her sacred presence mist, which she makes, sat in her cup holder. Made. The rich floral scent always transported me to Queen Cleopatra's throne room. I could almost see her reclining on her seat as 2 male servants fanned her with oversized palm fronds. A half-burned stick of sage and some crystals sat in a compartment by the radio. A bottle of kombucha lay on the passenger seat. Her sandy beach bag sat on the back floor. I could still smell the sunscreen on the towels. An overdue parking ticket was balled up on the floor. I smiled. It reminded me of the speeding ticket she got when driving through tribal lands in New Mexico. Screaming at the top of her lungs to the Navajo chant she was listening to, with her windows wide open, her hair tousled by the wind, she was completely unaware that she was driving 85 miles per hour. That was my Jan, joyful and free. I miss Jan's spontaneity and fearlessness. It had offered me the chance to vicariously step out of the rigid constraints I put on myself. Every time she got into the car and drove by herself to Nashville, Detroit, Colorado, or wherever for a festival, I would experience her intrepidness as my own, and for the moment I'd be the free spirit too. It amazed me how she didn't need someone to go with her. She just did it, and I miss that. She needed a different type of fearlessness now, the courage to confront the possibility of never walking again, of not being able to use her right arm, of never fully recovering. The stakes being what they were, this was a vicarious ride I was too scared to take. I was embarrassed by my gutlessness.
Wow. Is there any support groups that you're involved in, or are there support groups of people who have had problems like you've had? Even like younger people who have had major illnesses where you get together and you just discuss your experiences?
There are groups. We haven't really looked into that, though.
You did initially, Jen did start working with a speaking group. The problem was that most people in stroke groups are much older. And so it just
Didn't work.
wasn't a great fit, wasn't a good match.
Right. This is so inspiring, and I'm really looking forward to encouraging hospitals and people in the town who have problems, similar problems, or something related to medical issues to read the book. And I think it really can make a big difference in giving them hope and showing them that they could survive against all odds.
Thank you.
What you accomplished was a miracle and very inspiring. And I definitely will encourage everybody who has family members who are sick to read In the Face of Catastrophe. And it's written by you.
Yeah.
And again, thank you so much for being part of this program.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much for having
thank you.
us.
I think this is a book everyone should read. The title itself, In the Face of Catastrophe, we all have different types of catastrophes.
Very true.
So whether it's a medical or anything, the book is so well written and so inspirational that whatever catastrophe you're facing, whether it's your personal or financial or whatever, it has such good hope and such good messages of ways to navigate through catastrophe.
Thank you so much.
Anyone can relate to it.
And
so
you might
thank
want to
you.
even reach out to the clergy, like the local clergy
Yes,
groups, because my
yes.
feeling is people go to rabbis or priests, and they basically are
Absolutely.
asking for, to give them hope
To give
them
and
hope.
inspiration. And I
this
think
is-
that if somebody's having problems and
absolutely.
a member of the clergy shows them the book, that's something that could lift up their spirits.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
We're actually doing events at Temple Sinai
Right.
the week of the High Holy Days.
This is great. So thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.